A young woman arrived in New York with a shocking secret. She wasn't a billionaire, she wasn't an heiress, and she didn't have the fortune she claimed to possess. Yet somehow, she convinced bankers to consider lending her millions of dollars. She convinced luxury hotels to let her stay without paying. She convinced wealthy socialites to treat her like one of their own. And for years, nobody stopped her. Her name was Anna Delvey. At least, that's the name she wanted the world to know. To New York's elite, she was a mysterious German heiress with a fortune waiting overseas. A woman connected to wealth, power, and influence. Someone destined to become the next big name in the city's luxury scene. But behind the designer clothes, behind the exclusive parties, behind the confidence, was a carefully constructed lie. A lie so convincing that some of the world's most sophisticated people believed it. Until the day everything started to fall apart. This is the story of how Anna Delvey fooled New York, and how one fake heiress built an empire from nothing but confidence, deception, and a story people wanted to believe. New York City is a place where wealth opens doors. Luxury hotels welcome millionaires without hesitation. Exclusive clubs cater to the rich and powerful. And in the city's elite circles, reputation is everything. Some people spend decades building that reputation. Anna Delvey appeared to build hers almost overnight. She arrived at five-star hotels dressed in designer clothing. She ordered expensive meals, requested luxury suites, surrounded herself with influential people, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had unlimited money. Hotel staff treated her like royalty. Restaurant managers reserved their best tables. Business executives accepted meetings with her. To everyone she met, Anna Delvey looked exactly like a billionaire heiress. There was just one problem. She wasn't one. Yet somehow, the illusion kept growing. According to prosecutors and court records, Anna stayed in some of New York's most luxurious hotels, often promising that wire transfers were on the way whenever payment became an issue. There's been a delay. My trust fund is overseas. The money will arrive tomorrow. Again and again, people believed her, not because they had seen proof, but because Anna never looked worried. She spoke with complete confidence. She acted as though money had never been a problem in her life. And confidence can be surprisingly convincing. As her reputation grew, so did her ambitions. She wasn't content with living like a billionaire. She wanted to build something that would place her among New York's elite forever. The Anna Delvey Foundation, an exclusive private club designed for the wealthy. A space where art, business, fashion, and luxury would come together under one roof. To many people, it sounded like a brilliant idea. She spoke passionately about the project. She discussed architecture, investors, private members, exclusive experiences. Everything sounded carefully planned. There was only one obstacle. A project of that size required millions of dollars. Money Anna didn't actually have. But that didn't stop her. Instead, she began approaching financial institutions, presenting herself as a wealthy German heiress whose fortune was tied up overseas. If the banks believed her, everything would change. The dream would become real. And astonishingly, some people began taking her seriously. While bankers examined proposals, friends were also being drawn into Anna's world. Luxury vacations, fine dining, exclusive hotels. Whenever a bill arrived, there always seemed to be a reason she couldn't pay immediately. My transfer hasn't cleared. My bank is fixing the issue. I'll pay you back tomorrow. 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 The promises continued, and for a while, people accepted them. Because once you've convinced the world you're rich, few people want to be the first to question you. But every deception has an expiration date. Every unpaid bill leaves a trail. Every promise creates another expectation. And every lie demands an even bigger lie to protect it. The empire Anna Delvey was building looked flawless from the outside. But beneath the luxury, the expensive hotels, the glamorous parties, and the confident smile, the foundation was beginning to crack. The biggest question wasn't whether the illusion would collapse. It was this: who was Anna Delvey before she convinced New York she was a billionaire? To answer that, we have to go back to the very beginning. Long before New York knew her as Anna Delvey, she was simply Anna Sorokin. Born in Russia and raised in Germany, Anna's background was far from the glamorous image she would later present to the world. There were no royal bloodlines, no billionaire parents, no vast inheritance waiting to be claimed. Yet somehow, she would eventually convince people that all of those things were true. And it started with a simple observation. Anna understood something that many people never realize. In certain circles, perception can be more powerful than reality. If you look wealthy, people assume you are wealthy. If you act important, people assume you are important. And if enough people believe the story, they stop asking questions. By the early 2010s, Anna had developed a fascination with luxury, fashion, art, high society. The kinds of places where appearances mattered almost as much as money itself. After spending time in Europe, she eventually made her way to New York City, a city built on ambition, a city where people reinvent themselves every day, a city where strangers arrive with nothing and leave as legends, or in Anna's case, arrive with a fiction and convince everyone it was the truth. From the moment she arrived, Anna began crafting a new identity. Gone was Anna Sorokin. In her place stood Anna Delvey, a mysterious German heiress, a young woman with a fortune locked away overseas, a woman whose wealth was so vast that she rarely bothered discussing it. The story was vague, but that was part of its brilliance. The less specific she was, the harder it became to verify. And surprisingly, people accepted it. Not because they had proof, but because Anna looked the part. Designer clothes, luxury hotels, exclusive restaurants. Confidence. The kind of confidence that made people believe she belonged wherever she walked. Soon, she wasn't just attending events. She was becoming part of New York's elite social scene. Photographers noticed her. Socialites invited her. Business contacts took meetings with her. Doors began opening. The character she created was working. But maintaining the illusion would require more than confidence. Because eventually, people would expect evidence. And that meant Anna needed something bigger than expensive outfits and bold claims. She needed a dream. A project so ambitious that it would make people stop asking where the money came from and start asking how they could be part of it. That dream would become known as the Anna Delvey Foundation, and it would take her deception to an entirely new level. By the time Anna Delvey began making a name for herself in New York, she had already learned an important lesson. People rarely question wealth, especially when it looks convincing. Anna understood that appearances could open doors that money alone sometimes couldn't. So she began carefully constructing an image. Designer clothes, luxury hotels, exclusive restaurants, private events. Every detail helped reinforce the same message, that she was wealthy. Not just wealthy, extraordinarily wealthy. And surprisingly, very few people challenged the story. After all, Anna looked exactly how many people imagined a billionaire heiress should look. Confident, stylish, well-connected, and completely at ease in elite circles. The more she appeared in these spaces, the more legitimate she became. Soon she was attending private dinners, networking events, fashion gatherings, and art exhibitions. She wasn't hiding in the background. She wanted to be seen. Because visibility created credibility. People began introducing her to influential friends, business executives, investors, entrepreneurs, and socialites. One introduction led to another, one invitation led to the next. Before long, Anna was moving through New York's elite social scene as if she had always belonged there. And perhaps the most remarkable part of her rise was that many people never stopped to verify her claims. Instead, they assumed someone else already had. If she was staying in luxury hotels, she must have money. If wealthy people spent time with her, she must be legitimate. If she talked confidently about future investments, she must know what she was doing. The illusion fed itself, and the larger it became, the easier it was to maintain. But Anna wasn't satisfied with simply looking rich. Much bigger. She dreamed of creating an exclusive private club unlike anything New York had seen before. A place where art, culture, business, and luxury would come together under one roof. A destination designed specifically for the city's wealthiest and most influential people. She called it the Anna Delvey Foundation. To many people, the idea sounded ambitious, sophisticated, even visionary. And that was exactly what Anna wanted. Because now, she wasn't asking people to believe she was wealthy. She was asking them to believe in a future she claimed she could create. There was only one problem. Dreams of that size required millions of dollars, and Anna didn't have millions. At least not the way she claimed. But rather than abandon her vision, she made a decision. If she couldn't prove she had the money, she would try to convince others that she did. And that decision would soon bring her face to face with some of the most powerful financial institutions in America. For a moment, it seemed as though her plan might actually work. But hidden beneath the glamour and confidence, the first cracks were beginning to appear. And those cracks would eventually threaten to bring the entire illusion crashing down. By now, Anna Delvey had something many people spend years trying to build. A reputation. People knew her name. She had connections. She had influence. And she had a vision that sounded impressive enough to attract attention. The Anna Delvey Foundation. A luxury members-only club that would combine art, culture, business, and exclusive experiences. At least, that was the dream she presented to investors and bankers. But there was one major obstacle standing in her way. Money. The project would require millions of dollars to become reality. Far more than Anna actually had. Most people, when faced with a challenge like that, would abandon the idea. Anna did the opposite. She decided to pursue financing, and that meant convincing banks that she was exactly who she claimed to be. A wealthy heiress with substantial assets waiting overseas. If she could persuade a financial institution to believe her story, everything would change. The illusion would no longer just be a social success. It would become a business empire. According to court records and reporting on the case, Anna began approaching banks and financial institutions with ambitious proposals. She spoke confidently. She presented plans. She discussed future opportunities. And most importantly, she continued portraying herself as a woman backed by enormous wealth. To some people, she seemed credible. After all, she moved comfortably among New York's elite. She stayed in expensive hotels. She attended exclusive events. She looked successful. And appearances can be surprisingly persuasive. But banks operate differently than social circles. A wealthy friend might take your word for something. A financial institution wants proof, documents, statements, verification, evidence. The deeper Anna moved into the world of finance, the more difficult it became to rely solely on confidence and appearances. Began appearing. Requests for documentation. Requests for confirmation. Requests that threatened to expose the foundation of her entire story. But Anna wasn't ready to walk away. Instead, she pushed forward, again and again, meeting with executives, pitching her vision, trying to secure the funding she needed. For a time, it seemed possible that she might actually succeed, that somehow, through determination and persuasion alone, she could convince powerful institutions to place millions of dollars in her hands. But every lie carries a hidden cost. The larger the lie becomes, the harder it is to maintain. And Anna's story was becoming enormous. Soon, the pressure began to build. Bills started appearing. Questions became harder to answer. And people who had once been impressed by her confidence started looking more closely. The cracks that had first appeared beneath the surface were growing wider. What began as whispers of doubt would soon become something far more dangerous: suspicion. And once suspicion enters the picture, every secret becomes harder to protect. The woman who had convinced New York she was a billionaire was about to discover that keeping up the illusion could be just as difficult as creating it. And the next people to feel the consequences wouldn't be banks. It would be the friends who trusted her. Anna Delvey had accomplished something that seemed almost impossible. She had walked into New York with no fortune, and somehow convinced some of the city's most influential people that she was a billionaire heiress. Luxury hotels welcomed her. Wealthy socialites accepted her. Investors listened to her vision. And now, she was asking banks for millions of dollars. For a moment, it looked as though the impossible might actually happen. But every empire built on deception has one fatal weakness: the truth. And the closer Anna came to making her dream a reality, the harder it became to hide the lies that made it possible. Unpaid bills were beginning to pile up. Friends were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Financial institutions wanted proof, not promises. The illusion that had taken years to build was about to face its greatest test. And what happened next wouldn't just destroy Anna Delvey's dream. It would expose one of the most audacious frauds New York had ever seen. In Part 2, we'll uncover how the cracks began to appear, why her closest friends became her biggest victims, and how the woman who convinced New York she was a billionaire finally ran out of places to hide.